Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're so excited to have Chief Creative Officer Jeff Martin with Karsh Madden. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today, and we're excited for your presentation.
Thank you. I am too, as well. Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to talk about storytelling with some AI angles on it. I'm going to be straightforward and just tell you how we're doing things and what we've done in the past, what works, what hasn't worked, stuff like that. A little bit about myself. Yes, I'm the Chief Creative Officer, which, if you don't know what that is, it's a fancy word for a creative director that goes to a lot of meetings. But I have been doing what I do for over 30 years. I started in travel and tourism about 30 years ago, and now I'm here at KHM. I've been here for 11 years, or at the Karsh. We're now combined with Madden. We are 300 people right now, creative minds all over the country in 48 states. And we believe that you can create moments that actually will change brands. And because things happen in a moment, we all have defining moments in our lives, and so do brands. So today we're going to talk about how some of those moments are actually expressed in stories. Um, Funny enough, but I did this ad. My first travel and tourism campaign that I worked on was for Wyoming Tourism. And I had just moved to Wyoming from Alabama, which was really interesting. And ended up working on this campaign. It did really well. It was the first national campaign for Wyoming. And the funny thing is, when I went back and looked at it, it's storytelling. So what we're going to talk about today is been the backbone of a lot of marketing and advertising forever, and it's not ever going to go away. One of the things I like to talk about, or at least like to tell our clients, is that we're not in the creative business. I'm not in the creative business. We're in the problem solving business. But then we take those solutions and we execute them in a creative way that helps our clients stand apart from the sea of sameness. And when you put that angle on it, it definitely makes the creative, like for us, creative has to work. It can't just be, it's not decorative. It actually has to work and move the needle. So today we're going to talk about storytelling and bold storytelling in an AI world. Um, a lot of the business solutions that we put, you know, into the world are in the form of a story. Nothing, in my experience, nothing inspires people to travel more than a really good travel story. So when you think about it, a place is a place, a hotel's a hotel, and a room's a room until you attach an emotional memory to it. So in this session, we're going to explore storytelling. We're going to explore how it's right now still and always probably will be your biggest advantage, especially now with what's all happening. We're going to talk about AI, but AI as an amplifier, not as a creative replacement. And we're going to talk about why destinations that are emotionally um, telling their stories always seem to outperform those that are just talking about amenities. Because amenities can be one-upped. Stories are very ownable. And because the future of travel right now, we're going to see a ton of content. AEI is going to create a ton of content in the industry, but the problem is it content that people care about? And that's where we're going to start to really see where storytelling can jump in and actually hit on some other cylinders. Um, this is one of the things I love to talk about. Travel is an emotional choice. It's a heart thing before it's a head thing. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, today I'm gonna book a flight to a hotel room. They just don't do that. They wake up in the morning and they go, man, I need a break. I need some adventure in my life. I want to connect with my family more. So first and foremost, it's an emotional reaction. And then you decide like where can we go? What can we afford? But first and foremost, it's emotional reaction. So that is why storytelling really hits home and allows you to actually dive a little deeper and not make this a transactional something transactional versus transformational. And that's what we're always looking for. People are looking for meaning. They want a story that they can live. They want to feel something where they go that they can't feel at home. And so when you drop some breadcrumbs, when you're talking about your marketing and how you're actually setting your destination up, that's going to get them to the right mindset earlier. I pulled a couple quotes just because there's a lot of talk right now. Con just happened. There's a lot of talk about storytelling and AI, and it's pretty, it's been very interesting. This one I thought was, one that you're hearing a lot. It is no longer about the stuff you make because the stuff you make can be actually made by somebody else, but about the stories you tell and how you tell them and the point of view that you tell them from. Forbes kind of said it differently, but this was earlier on this year that storytelling is going to become the CMO's most profitable skill, and that is something that I truly believe in. The CMOs we work with right now are looking for an opportunity to obviously you know, advertise what they're doing or their destination, but they're realizing that you just can't talk about what you have and what you do. You have to talk about why you have it and why you do what you do. And that gets you into the storytelling model. So what does that mean? It means that the playbook's changing and it's going to keep changing. The landscape out there right now is definitely like the Wild West. And, because one of the things too, travel motivations, we travel is based on culture, like what's happening in the world. So when the world changes, so does our travel and how we think about travel. So if we're feeling cooped up, then we want to travel to find freedom. If we're feeling like the world's a little crazy, then we travel for simplicity. So it's important to know that you're not just selling a destination. At least we look at it like you don't sell a destination. What you're really selling are emotional needs. And that's, what your audience wants. They want to know how you're going to tap into an emotion right now that is driving my mental travel mind. I ran across this one. This is pretty interesting, but I can see that it would be something that, everybody with the Wild West and with what's going on with the playbook that CMOs are, they are struggling, some of them, with how do we keep a consistent brand story going. So we're going to talk a little bit about once you get a brand story, how you can amplify that into a lot of different ways so that you're not always telling the same story, but pieces of it. Um, so what is bold storytelling, right? When you think about it, one, it's really your why. Your why is much harder to rip off than your what, and your why really starts to talk in a deeper level to your audience. People want to feel personally, like that their trips are personally significant, and the why will help you definitely get there. And then we're going to talk a lot about feelings. People want to feel something, heart before brain. Again, talking about that idea that, first and foremost, we're feeling it here, and then we start thinking about how we're going to do it. If the destination is the product, then emotion is what is in demand right now. And then what's your point of view? Telling a story without a point of view usually falls kind of flat. So, what is your point of view? How are you telling it that your brand, like if your brand were telling that story, how would it tell that story? And that's something that we do a lot too when we actually talk about if your brand was a person. It helps you start to put a voice behind it. And then don't worry about messy, authentic, not perfect, not polished. Right now with AI, which feels very polished, you're seeing a lot more, people are shooting a lot more stuff on like iPhones. We do. Because if it's not going to run on a major, channel, it's just running on video. There's so much you can do that feels like it wasn't a big production. And a lot of the times, if your storytelling needs to be more authentic, it kind of helps if it doesn't feel like it was shot with a huge crew and that look and feel. So don't be afraid to get messy when it comes to actually how you tell your story. So I'm going to jump into one of my favorite stories, spot that we're going to watch. This, ran a while back, but it's probably one of the top Super Bowl ads of all time. And what was interesting is maybe some of you heard the actual story from Paul Harvey before it was actually a Dodge truck story, but what makes this story so beautiful is just a human story. It's not a story about trucks. It's not a story about football. It's a human story. And so Dodge was able to align their brand with this hardworking, salt of the earth kind of personality, and it fit great and it really did well. So let's watch this and just get into that whole storytelling mindset before we jump into a little deeper stuff.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, then go to town and stay past midnight at a meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die, then dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need somebody who can shape an axe handle from a persimmon sprout, shoe a horse with a hunk of car tire, who can make harness out of hay, wire, feed sacks, and shoe scraps, who planting time and harvest season will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday noon, and then pain in from tractor back put in another 72 hours. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-combed pullets, who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer. It had to be somebody who'd plow deep and straight and not cut corners, somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk, somebody who'd bale a family together with the soft, strong bonds of sharing, who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with smiling eyes when his son says that he wants to spend his life doing what Dad does. So God made a farmer.
I don't know, that spot, I haven't seen it in a while, except for in this presentation, and it always hits me. It's such an emotional spot, and what I love is they never mention Dodge trucks or anything. Um, that's the true essence of storytelling, when you can actually align your brand with something that is an emotional opportunity for you to connect with your audience on a deeper level. Uh, so bold storytelling is a strategy, and we use it a lot. It is a way to not actually act like you're selling, but sell, and to some extent. And I know that, that's what we do. When I talk about we're all in sales a lot, it is, but it's just how you approach it. And when someone's actually, when they're looking to, let me make sure, we see about 10,000 messages a day on and off. So when you actually don't sell and you're just aligning yourself with a feeling or a message, it definitely comes off as original and more authentic. And that is really important, because one of my favorite things is, like, nobody's looking to be sold, right? Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, man, I hope somebody sells me something today. They're looking to be understood. And that's one of the things that I believe that a lot of brands don't necessarily practice, is listening. And with AI, one of the things I do like is you can listen to signals. You can get signals out there of what's going on. Um, but when you say that you can understand, like, especially in destination, when I think about it, it's like, understand me as a parent who has kids. Understand me as someone who has been working too much and I need a break. That's what I want you to understand, because if you understand that, then we're going to actually talk one to one. One of the examples I want to show you here is with the Denver airport. We wanted, during a campaign of what we called the art of airporting, it was the holidays, which is probably one of the most stressful times anybody that's traveled. So we wanted to let travelers know that we understood that stress and that anxiety during the holidays. And we wanted to create an opportunity for them to tell a story, or for us to tell a story, but to have it come from them. And like I said, create a moment that would change their perspective. And there are a lot of ways to tell stories, and you don't always have to do it through ads or even TV spots. So this one was an activation, but was an opportunity for us to launch the art of airporting and to let people know it's about surprise and delight. Airports, they can be very stressful, but imagine, the fun things. We used to go back and think that flying and traveling was really fun, and then somehow or another over the years it just got stressful and anxiety ridden. So we wanted to do something different for the airport traveler during the holidays, and this is what we did.
Ah, the holidays. Aren't they great? Yeah, but they can be stressful too. Here at Denver International Airport, we want to make sure you feel prepared for your travels. We thought, what if we created a room that gave travelers a break from all the lines and holiday hustle? What if it also had surprises inside? So, we made it happen. And we found some folks with long layovers and families who were in need of a little extra zen. We surprised them. And let them try out goat yoga.
So is goat yoga a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing.
This is amazing.
So happy that you're here today.
Downward goat.
And people had oodles of fun.
Like the best traveler's stretch you could ever do.
And people forgot about their worries.
Namaste.
I felt like I just walked into another world. Like I'm not in the airport anymore.
Well, it's the Zen room, and I think that's a great way to explain it right there.
It's like an amazing experience. It's very unexpected for being in the airport.
There you have it. At Denver International Airport, we believe that traveling well is an art. It's an opportunity to experience new, wonderful things. This holiday season, take time to enjoy the journey with friends and family. Who knows? Maybe you'll end up doing goat yoga at an airport. Happy holidays from all of us at Den. May your travels be merry and bright.
So stories allow us to remember things much more deeper and longer than facts. And experiences are always tied to those. So we find ourselves a lot of the times trying to engage with our audience and break that wall of just being an ad or just being, a way to sell something again. So when you think about it, we've been telling stories for thousands of years. So that's why it's hardwired in us. So when I feel that brands aren't using the ability to tell stories, I always ask myself, why? Because you're trying to sell versus trying to connect. And that's a whole different level. So, why would that emotion disappear even with AI and what's happening in technology? It won't. It's still there. And that's what's kind of interesting. And that was what was talked about at cons this year, was the fact that a lot of people are backpedaling. A lot of people are backpedaling when it comes to how much AI is involved in the actual creative process versus, yeah, it can help us scale faster and get some aspects of our work done quicker. But the intimacy and the human connection is something that it can't do. AI can generate content, but it can't generate wonder. And that's a big thing right now that we're dealing with, and a lot of people are dealing with. So let's talk about what makes a great story. And if you don't have an Uncle Jimmy in Alabama, who think when I was a kid, he made all the stories great, but that is not necessarily what makes a great story. But there are some threads of continuity that make a great story that I want to talk about and have you guys understand, because this is stuff that we do every day. And when you know the principles of it, you can break those principles and apply it to a lot of different things. Ken Burns likes to say that 1+1 = 3. And the premise of this is really great because there has to be some magic. Great stories have some type of magic, how they're told, where they're told, the perspective, what's that twist, but what is that little bit of magic so that, again, it becomes a unique story. Sometimes it's just the point of view of how you actually tell it. But that perspective as a brand is what you can own. You can own that much more than, again, talking about what you bring. You can talk about why you did it that way, and that's ownable in a much bigger scale. So we're gonna tap into Mr. Rogers because he was a great storyteller. And let's talk about some levers, 3 levers that we use to really get into the mindset of how we're going to tell a story. This is more or less, our operating procedure of how we try to get to a story. The first one is we call flip the script, and we've all seen this. Flip the script is defying people's expectations of how an experience is going to play out. So you see this all the time with brands like, especially Liquid Death now, Doritos, Nike. very culturally aware brands will use opportunities to flip the script and do something you didn't see coming because, again, they want that surprise, right? It's not just reach and consistency, it's that surprise because awareness is one thing, but memory is a whole nother one. And, I can be aware of a lot of things, but I remember things that actually affect me personally. So you want to shoot for memory and not necessarily just awareness. So when you flip the script, you rewrite the rules. You want to know what's happening in culture so you might be able to play off of it. And then, the things we ask ourselves is what can we say that we shouldn't? Or what are the product benefits that we can overextend and actually just make them maybe ludicrous to some extent. But again, you're flipping the script, you're breaking the rules, you're trying to show people something different. And one of the projects that we worked on where we really get to do this that was very successful was with the airport. If anybody's flown in the airport in the last 10 years, you've definitely seen all this. The Great Hall renovation was, or I think it was 5 years, and they're still doing stuff, but it was 5 years, huge construction project that we knew was going to be noisy. There, if you've been there, there's just tons of like walls up. You can't go from point A to point B without going around something. So when they asked us to help them, you know, promote the Great Hall in an interesting way, but also navigate, how we got through the airport, we could have easily done just pardon our dust. It would have been easy. It's something that people have seen a lot, but the problem was that one, it's boring and it's a lost opportunity. The other problem is that after you've gone through about three detours, you're not that happy. So, how do we do something that was going to not only entertain and get people to get their mind off of what was going on in the airport and the fact that I can't get to my gate in an easy way? But how are we going to do that, but also be unique and surprise worthy, right? So we went with pardon our conspiracy theories instead. If you've done any research on the airport, there's a ton of conspiracy theories. We had talked to the CEO at the time, and this was the best time to actually kick this off. So we decided, like, let's give them something else to focus on. Let's give them something buzzworthy. Yeah, they're still going to have to navigate construction. They're still going to be maybe a little bit upset, but now they're going to do it while they're walking around Googling the history of the airport and trying to figure out what's going on. So this really played out pretty well, but we started it off pretty simple, right? Just what's going on. Big, big walls here, construction or cover up. Throw Illuminati in there. And then we built the Den Files. And the Den Files was an add-on to their website, but it started to really put some history and some interesting conspiracy theories against what you were seeing. So it gave people a place to go, but also a place to kind of post stuff. So we started off with construction or cover up, and then it just kind of went from there. Den's got secrets. Do we have secrets? We have secrets. So let's just throw some secrets out there and again, let them play around with it, right? So since the airport's opening in 95, there have been endless rumors and theories. People say our underground tunnels lead to secret meeting facilities for the world's elite. Our blue horse is thought to have been cursed. Some believe we are connected to the New World Order, the Freemasons, and home to the lizard people. So learn the truth at Den Files. This started getting some traction. So we just added on to it, right? Are we recreating the world's greatest airport or preparing for the end of the world? Learn more at Den Files. And if you know Lucifer, that he has his own history and conspiracy about him. But he actually fell on the original artist and killed him. So his son finished the horse. And plus, if you see him at night, he's kind of creepy, but he's cool and he's ours. So it is what it is. But we didn't want to necessarily just say, hey, what else is going on here? So what we did was, when there's a lot of noise and stuff, it's an opportunity to let them build on the story. So what's happening behind the wall? So all we did was just give them some options. Again, letting them, read and start to do their own research. So what's behind this wall? Gargoyle breeding grounds, a top secret Freemason meeting, or an improved airport experience. Nothing says conspiracy theory like a cat with a tinfoil hat. So another fun one, more space for interesting artwork, a better airport experience, or zombie cat layers. And you can see we just went to town with these because there are a lot. In fact, I'm only showing you like a third of them, honestly. So again, playing what's going on behind this, really getting people to stop. And then it got fun because as the noise got louder and things started getting, more chaotic, we just blamed the lizard people. And that took the onus off the airport. It also gave people more opportunity to have fun with this story and to post it out. So apologies for the noise. Digging tunnels to the underground gets really loud. And then when they told us they were behind schedule, that also kind of just threw in and it gave us the opportunity to blame somebody else too. So thanks for your patience, but the lizard people keep stealing our tools. So we had a lot of fun with this. And, the big question was, where do we take it? How does our story continue? So if you've been to the airport, there are some gargoyles all over the place, and they're in suitcases. They're kind of weird. So we decided to bring one to life, and actually, again, let this story continue. Let our travelers be a part of it, but let them tell the story for us. So we ended up building this gargoyle. This is the real one on the left, or the one in the suitcase. We built this other one. We put a bunch of hidden cameras up, and we hired a stand-up comic from LA, and we let him just talk to passengers, and then we just filmed the whole thing. So with that, I'll let you see this.
That's a little too close for comfort, lady.
Oh, damn.
What, you never seen a talking gargoyle before? Welcome to Illuminati headquarters. I mean, Denver International Airport.
This is awesome.
Hello? Do I know you?
Are you hungry?
Oh, I'm starving. You got anything for me? Those flowers look delicious.
Oh,
Oh, it's because of the conspiracy.
Oh, it's because of the conspiracy. Look at me. I'm a little know-it-all. Will you get back over here? I got a question about this conspiracy. Did you have to buy an extra seat for your hat, sir? Sir, are you stealing a desk? Sir, you have resting, confused face. Do you have a favorite animal or pet?
A caterpillar?
A caterpillar? Wouldn't you rather have a gargoyle?
No!
Yes. You can actually put the phone down and have a conversation with me. But no, I'm a millennial. I've got to post it. I've got to snap face it and Twitter book it. Excuse me, miss, I've got a stain that needs some polishing. Can I borrow your cleaning cart?
Oh, no!
I need your help. Guess what my favorite food is?
What?
No, I want you to guess.
Human?
Cumin. Yes, I love cumin.
I said human!
Oh, I thought you said cumin. I'm a real big spice guy. Furry hat guy, I can't believe you are wearing one of my friends.
Hey, this isn't your friend.
It used to be until you put it on your head, man.
How old are you?
Well, 243 years old now. I look good for my age, don't I?
Yeah, you work out?
All the time. You should see my squats.
You're such a sweet talker.
Will you take me back home with you?
Let's go. I have some space in my backpack.
Actually, I think you have too much baggage for me.
So a lot of fun with that. That thing's still there. The gargoyle is still there. After a while, we actually had some pre-recorded messages put on it. So when you talk by a motion sensor, he would just talk to you. So again, surprise and delight. That was the whole idea behind the airport, was the art of airporting. What is the art of airporting, and how can we actually build stories that people could be a part of, not just talking? A good way to measure whether you flip the script enough is if people engage, or if they start to share, or somehow or another it just doesn't sit there in the universe and then disappear. And one of the things that was great about this is a lot of people engaged, and a lot of people shared the content. One of my favorite things is, we got billions of impressions, and the really fun thing is, as far as a marketer goes, is we spent $0 on media. Those were just posters that we put up on a wall inside of the airport. That's it. And it turned out to be a huge, huge success for them. And one of those things where, yeah, it could have been wild, and they didn't want to talk about conspiracy theories at first, but now it's been just such a part of the airport that it's actually grown into its own kind of story. My partner's from Northern England. Even his mom, as he would say, saw this Saw an article up there. So really fun project and a good way to actually allow people to be a part of the story. And we had the other side too. All the conspiracy theorists went nuts over this to the point where I would go on YouTube and there's so many videos on YouTube about this campaign. Most of them saying that we're part of it, and now that it's been exposed, we're turning it into a joke. So it's just interesting that when you light a fire and people want to be a part of it, they will absolutely make the effort. And it's still going on. This campaign is not really run in a couple years, but you can go to Den Files or hashtag Den Files on Instagram and see a ton of stuff still. And in bigger picture, our CEO, the CEO of Den, really wanted to be the number one airport voted by travelers, and we succeeded in that. Actually, 2 years did that. So again, surprise and delight, creating an opportunity for people to be a part of the story, not just tell them a story, and flipping the script, doing something that was unexpected. This second lever that you can pull is elevating the stakes. This is like taking a stand. Like I like to tell, I like to ask people, what do you stand for? If you don't stand for something, what do you stand against? But one way or the other, this is an opportunity to tell a story in a unique way. So, what are the consequences of your actions or your inactions? What if you align your brand with a belief and, take a stand for something that you believe in? And then for a lot of this, we call them BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. What is a goal that you want to achieve? For Aspen, when we were working with Aspen, it was a new ski year, but that year there was definitely a lot of chatter about climate change. And Aspen is a world-class resort, but they're also a huge climate change advocate, and they do a lot of things that get somewhat pushed down because of just being Aspen. So that year, Mike Kaplan, who was the CEO, wrote a really interesting op-ed that talked about climate change and said, if we're in the business for long term, we can't ignore climate change and pretend it doesn't exist. This was what sparked the idea for us, really. The idea that these guys yes, absolutely, they're a world-class resort, but they have, no one skis if you don't have snow. And who else could be a leader of this movement than Aspen? And so with that, we launched Give a Flake. The idea here is, if you care about powder days, if you care about long winters, you have to give a flake. And this story allowed Aspen to really put their values in front. And also, we didn't want to tell a story. We wanted to create a movement. We wanted other people to be a part of this story. We wanted other people to tell us their story, and we wanted to make it actionable. That was what was really interesting was, you can talk about, give a flake, but if you don't allow people to actually, again, be a part of it, to change or to prove something, then it's just another, empty promise to some extent. So when we launched it, one of the things I thought one of the articles was pretty interesting was Aspen Snowmass once again departs from traditional ski resort marketing and launches Give a Flake. And, that just leaned into the fact that part of Aspen's personality has always been stepping up or stepping outside the lines and doing what they believed in. So this felt very true to their DNA, but it was something that they had never done before. We wanted it to have a grassroots feel, right? So this approach needed to connect with skiers and snowboarders and communities and people who depended on and loved winter. We didn't want them to just tell their story. We wanted them to be, able to be a part of it, and we wanted to give them an opportunity to be a part of it. So obviously, the first thing you do is, we launched a website or a microsite so that we could put the information out there and allow people to be able to tell the story with the right information, right? So if they're going to be advocates for us, we wanted to give them that opportunity. We also gave them an opportunity to what we call flake themselves. So now they can push out all their own pictures of them skiing or whatever, but with different opportunities to flake and give a flake on there. So again, it gave them some information. They didn't have to write a lot of stuff. We already had it pre-written for them, so they could flake themselves and attach a little bit of that info that talked about climate change and how it was affecting their passion. That went on for a while, but then we needed to raise the stakes. Again, constantly raising the stakes on this. So what do we need to do to push this actionable component to get our story out and get it in front of the people who could actually make some real change? And that was senators, and that was people who, we knew were already voting on climate change, who were a part of that. So we built this was back when it was Twitter, right? We built a Twitter bot, and you could go onto this Twitter bot on the site. You could type in your zip code, where you were, and it would tell you your representatives, and it would tell you whether or not they gave a flake or not. And then you could actually tweet. You could tweet out and you could attach their name and tweet out either, you were for what they were doing or against what they were doing. But again, allowing you to create part of your own story or be a character in the story, to go out and actually have a voice, feel like you were doing something, and it's just building momentum, and you're telling your friends. And again, it's a bigger story. Mike Kaplan, or the CEO, he tweeted out this, just thanking Senator Mike Bennett for voting for, climate change initiatives. So you could do that. Some of them weren't against that. So they didn't get these kind of tweets. They got other tweets, right? But how do we keep the story going? How do we build on it? How do we like, again, taking the give a flake and applying it to a lot of different avenues to get the story out? We've all grabbed magazines, and that thing called, it's called a BRC card, right? That business reply card falls out, and it's like, hey, get a subscription to Outside Magazine. So we came up with the idea of like repurposing that. How can we use that in a way that allow people to be actionable again? So we took the BRC card, we actually put messages on it, and we focused those messages to three senators who were in states that were on the fence of climate change, but had a lot of opportunity for outdoor activities and skiing and stuff. So we picked Alaska with Senator Murkowski, Maine with Senator Collins, and Portland with Ohio. And we allowed you, once the magazine, when you got the magazine, you could open it up, and this was going to stand out right there. Letter, I give a flake to Senator Murkowski. I'm writing you as a fellow skier, lover of winter, and concerned citizen. I can't think of another place in the world more on the front lines of climate change than Alaska. Yet you remain indifferent to the issue. How can that be when ski is right there in your name? Your state's annual average temperature has warmed 2.4 degrees since 1988 and an astonishing 5.4 degrees in the winter. Alaska has some of the best skiing and riding in the world, but the whole economy and entire villages built on melting permafrost is threatened. Despite the obvious impact on our world, you choose not to take a lead on climate. That's got to change. Of all people, you're the right person in the right place to give a flake. You sign it, you throw it in the mail, pre-stamped, no problem. Gets there. A lot of them got there. Thousands of them got there. And that just built another story. So Senator Murkowski decided to get in touch with Outside and started debate with them, and then they did an article. So the interesting thing about this whole thing is that you never know when a story could create a bigger opening or a bigger opportunity, because it's an in-depth story. You're not selling something, you're getting someone interested in something. So therefore, they're going to take the time to dive in a little bit more. They're going to be more curious, they're going to be more amazed, and they're going to get engaged. And that is the beauty of not just selling, but expressing what it is that you want them to do. It also got a ton of press, and that's, again, this is all free press. They had great free press. We had a good year that year, and they retained their title as a world-class ski resort that gives a flake. So there is a shift in the thinking of how this works. And it really is, to go again from thinking in stories to thinking in messages. You're think about building experiences versus just delivering a message. Again, that reach and frequency, you hear that a lot, but it's not so much about reach and frequency. It's about emotional highs. It's about peaks. It's about hitting a peak that someone is going to remember, not just be aware of. So it does take a mindset shift so that you can actually hit those goals, but it's not a huge one because we do this when we tell stories anyway. So our last one is a relatable hero. We see this a lot, making your audience feel seen and not just sold. Again, we fall in love with some of these characters. Um, it is you're selling people, not products. So a lot of the times, these characters embody your not only your brand, what it is, but they can embody some of the personalities that would be hard to tell your brand for your brand to actually show if it didn't have this kind of spokesperson. And it turns affection or it turns attention into affection. We've seen a ton. This is not new. It's been done all over the place. We see it more, but it can really reshift. It can symbolize a shift in your brand. Whether it's Captain Obvious or the world's most interesting man, that really that shifted the perspective of that beer because this guy was not some young, playboy. He was just this more older, wise, sophisticated. So it gave Dos Equis a more sophistication, and they did it without having to say it. And that's where it gets interesting. I guess my question, for us is, does that relatable hero have to be human? And it really depends. So case in point here is we worked with Vitalent, and they are one of the nation's largest nonprofit blood donation, organizations. And they came to us and said, "Look, people over or under 40 do not give blood, and we really need to connect with them. So how can we connect with, this younger generation?" So the first thing we did was start doing a lot of research to figure out, again, we've tried to go out there and listen and understand what that particular group and that audience who we're talking to, what do they care about? What were they talking about? And one of the interesting things we found out, and we actually found an article and then kind of did some research in it, but millennials care more about animal like nonprofits and what are helping animals than they do humans. So we were like, all right, how can we use that? And we ended up using that in a pretty interesting way. We got an influencer to help us out, but the influencer's not human. And this influencer has 8 million followers, which is kind of mind blowing. But this was how we introduced the opportunity for a younger generation to come help us give blood.
Cats get a bad rap. You've heard we don't like you, even plot to kill you. I'm here to set the record straight. We're actually plotting to save you. Not enough people are giving blood, and giving saves 12,000 lives a day. So that time I peed in your shoes, I was telling you to give blood. And when I jumped on your face, I wanted you to give blood. And that time I coughed up a hairball and you stepped in it. Okay, that was just funny. But you get the picture. Give blood, save the humans.
So that
Visit
became our
Vitalent.org.
one North Star was give blood, save the humans. We ran that all over the place, and that's the idea here. One core story, just one simple thought, and then multiple expressions of it. So everything from outdoor, TV, print, social. We did animal merchandise. We actually created things for animals because everybody wanted to give their dog something that said "Save blood," or "Give blood, save the humans." So that was our focus. It worked really, really well for them. It gave people the opportunity to not only post about their animal and how much their animal would miss them if they weren't around, but the idea that, the animals need us, right? They need belly rubs, they need food. And it was a different way to tell a story based on research that we did, knowing our audience a little bit more, instead of going out there and just asking for someone to get blood, which really didn't have a great point of view and really is not unique and just, was going to end up being in a sea of sameness. So in the bigger picture, I mean, if you look at the great brands, they aren't selling, they are telling stories and making connection. Um, Three of the ones that I spend a lot of time with, Patagonia, huge fan of Patagonia. Even their catalogs are just like, it looks like an adventure magazine. It's not, the clothes are on actual people that are actually in the outdoors. Airbnb, I've had an Airbnb for a long time. And what I love about Airbnb is that it is all about neighborhoods. It is about connecting with your neighbor. And the people that I've met that have stayed there are just amazing, wonderful people. And it fits in the context of the Airbnb. And then Dove is a soap company that actually redefined beauty. and self-esteem. And wow, and that whole campaign was so amazing. So the opportunity to step above and beyond what you do to what you stand for is there if you really are looking for it and you want to do something that's probably not going to be done by your competition. I wanted to hit on this because lately we've been doing a lot of long format. 30 seconds is a short time to tell a story. You can do it 60 seconds, but what's happening now is these platforms have changed. The story hasn't. So you still have to have a hook. You still have to have a journey. You still have to have, an emotional payoff. But now you don't have to do it in 30 seconds. You don't have to do it in 60 seconds. YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and even LinkedIn are allowing you and rewarding people for doing longer content. With long, form story, you have an opportunity to really tell a much bigger story. The two that we've worked on this year and which was amazing was 3100, which was for Visit Idaho, and 6 series probably, I don't know, total of maybe 30 minutes for all of them. And then into the roundup, it was for Custer State Park in South Dakota. That was a 5 series part. Between the two of them, 10 million views. And the 3100 won an Emmy this year. The roundups won Tellys and some other stuff. So what we're seeing is that there's an appetite for longer format. I think the average male that's looking at like motorcycles spends a couple of hours a day on YouTube. It's just insane the numbers that people will do right now to watch longer form. And because they don't have to watch it on their TV, they can sit down and just and really fall into that story. So think about something, how can you actually build out your stories longer than 30 seconds? So now I'm going to get to the AI. What about AI? AI is a huge part of our lives, but how does it fit into storytelling? It's definitely AI is changing the industry. It's changing how we market destinations, but you got to have some guardrails. We put some guardrails around it because used right, it's done well. Used wrong, those are the stories you see in the news all the time, right? Again, AI can generate content, but it can't generate wonder. It can't generate, awe. So absolutely do we use it. But our stuff right now, I'm not kidding you, starts on a piece of paper. It starts on a piece of paper with someone sitting across from somebody that has an idea, and then it goes from there. Some things we can use it on. So for South Dakota, when the Barbie movie came out, we wanted to play off that cultural opportunity, and so we created Barbies for different areas of South Dakota, and then we just did social posts. So that gave us a really, a fun way to be a part of culture and use AI, but to do it within the boundaries of what we had set. Fly Rhode Island is really fun because all we do is hammer Boston and how slow it is. So yeah, it's hard to get a sloth to hold those cones. So we create it in AI, and then this is a little social post just playing off the idea there that Boston is really slow. We can't shoot in the Boston Tunnel, so we shoot on green screen with real people and real cars. And then we created the Boston Tunnel in AI so that it looks like the car's stuck in a bunch of traffic in the Boston Tunnel. That is something, again, that we couldn't do years ago, but now we can. But we do it within the confines that we've set up. Or Telluride in the top left, those are all still images that we shot. So that's the other thing too. Those are real images. Now we can take those and create an absolute diorama where things move, and it does give you an otherworldly look, which was part of the campaign. We couldn't do that again. So finding ways to use AI that works within your brand and the authenticity of your brand is really important, especially if you're a destination. You know, I can't imagine what would happen if you were using it wrong and then people thought that you were actually, manipulating parts of the destination. That's where I think you have to have some guidelines. If you're working with a partner, you need to know when they're using it, when they're not. I saw another fact that said something like 50% of clients don't know how much their agency is using AI on their products or on their marketing. So it's really important that you probably put those steps into place. When it comes to AI, I kind of lean into Rick Rubin, who, if you don't know him, probably the world's greatest hip hop producer. Doesn't look like it, but you are the instrument. You are from which the ideas come. We start with a blank sheet of paper, we go from there. Sometimes it's not even an ad. Sometimes it goes straight. We might come up with a great idea that's a better PR story. So the idea is AI is not an idea. AI is a tool to amplify ideas. That is how we look at it. I can't say everybody looks at it, but that has been our view, and it's worked really well for us. If you do have to do some things for helping up your team, these are probably the three top ones that we've made sure at least everyone who works with AI on our end. And one is just build prompt fluency. Um, Learn how to use the prompts correctly and learn which ones are going to get you the end result better and faster. When we do some of that stuff, like I think the sloth, we're talking thousands of prompts, thousands to get everything right from the lighting to the fur to the movement to expression. So learning how to use your prompts well is going to be a huge, huge opportunity for you to up the game. And then, honestly, making time to experiment, you got to screw up. You got to screw up a bunch. That's the only way you're going to learn. That's how you're going to get faster at it. So give your teams that are working with it opportunities to screw up and opportunities to show you something that they're pushing their own capabilities. And then raising the bar for AI output is really important because AI will spit stuff out real quick, but doesn't mean it's right. So this is where that whole idea of, like my evaluation of something, my understanding, I really need to put it into play. Just because AI spit it out doesn't mean it's going to be something I should use. So build your team around the idea that they critically, look at whatever AI puts out and then decide if that is right. And if it's not, then you can go back to your prompt fluency and make it better. Um, this was a quote that I pulled from Khan that was said a couple of weeks ago from the CMO of Bose, and I think it's perfectly right on, right? The ground has been leveled. Everybody's going to be able to create content, but is it worthy of my attention and my efforts? That's going to be interesting. That's where it goes back to storytelling. That's where it goes back to your original idea that AI is not an idea, but how do we use AI to the best of our ability, but it still has to start with a solid idea and it still has to start with an understanding of your audience. Another quote that I thought was interesting because this has got some big players in it, but yeah, content's going to be easier, so storytelling becomes a creative advantage. And that's, again, I could sit here and tell you this all day. I think it's cool when I find other, that we are on the right track and this is what we need to be doing. Some of these brands have more money to do whatever they want and to know that they're actually putting some brakes on and thinking about the long-term effects to their brand is really, I think, refreshing. So when it comes to storytelling, three things that are just really simple. Keep it simple. You hear stories, you tell stories, they're always simple and they need to be repeatable. When somebody tells you a good story, it's because it was simple, it was authentic, and you remembered it. That applies to everything you're doing, even in marketing. So we're not trying to do anything different, and you don't need big budgets. Some of the stuff I showed you was super, super small budgets. Um, Big ideas don't have to have big budgets. In fact, sometimes I like having a smaller budget because it really forces you to make sure your idea is sharp and actually pointed and heading in the direction you want it to. Um, and a final thought is nobody wants to get sold. You're not convincing people to buy. You want them to buy in. That's different, right? You want them to want to have your product or destination as part of their life because you've spoken to them on a level that didn't feel like they were selling. You were selling them something that you got them, that you understood them. And nothing does that better than storytelling. Storytelling is the one way you can actually connect with people on so many different levels. I hope you've seen some different ways to tell stories because when I feel like I'd say storytelling and marketing, people think long, just drawn out commercials and, a lot of explanation. And it's not. There's so many different ways to tell a story. Your brand will dictate a lot of how you tell that story because you want it to come from that perspective and that DNA. And that is what I got for you today. I really appreciate it. My email address is down there right now. So if you have any questions or you just want to say hi, please shoot me an email. And right now, I think we have 5 minutes for maybe a question or two.
Absolutely. Does anybody have any questions for Jeff? You can definitely drop it in the chat.
Absolutely. I hope I didn't talk too fast, but I probably put too many slides in this thing. But I was excited to share a lot of stories with you. So I
No,
appreciate
that was fantastic. I think if anybody has questions, they have your email. But thank you so much, Jeff, to you for your wonderful presentation today. And to all of you for joining us, we appreciate it so much. Watch for next month's webinar on our website. And this presentation will be posted to our website tomorrow. So if you want to relive it all or share with your team, you can do so on our website, like I said, tomorrow. Thank you again, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.